these bullying cases that have been reported by the Nation Media Group over the last couple of days have begun a national soul-searching of sorts on what exactly is behind this bullying culture in many of the country's top national schools, but also in high schools around the country. I want to bring in my panel right now. I've got Silas Kiriinya with me. He's a psychologist, and also with me is Charles Masheti, the acting director at the Starehe Boys Center and School. And joining me from Mombasa, we have Fatuma Nehondo. She is the head teacher at Nuru Memorial Secondary School. Thank you all for coming in. Let me start with you, Fatuma. When you hear these stories of bullying happening at a top school like Alliance, but also in many other high schools around the country, what is your reaction? She doesn't seem to be able to hear me. I'll come back to her in just a moment. But Mr. Masheti, your immediate reaction when you heard this, because now it has become a national conversation, but this is nothing new.
When you look at the atmosphere at Starehe, one of the things I'll say is that our boys are not perfect, but they try very hard, and what you see is responsible boys who are active and who are honest. Now, for us to be able to go through this kind of situation without having a challenge of bullying, we try as much as possible to make Starehe like a home, where we ensure that the boys get an atmosphere of happiness with a high degree of freedom and responsibility and personal responsibility. So first of all, we create an atmosphere, a home atmosphere where boys know that they are dealing with their own brothers. So there's nothing like thinking about doing something wrong to your brothers. Then the other area that we deal with, because bullying mostly happens to Form 1s, the first formers. It's
called the rite of passage, and a lot of people have been justifying it.
Yeah, which is wrong. It's definitely wrong, because for us, when first formers arrive, they are welcome into a home atmosphere. And what happens is that they immediately are engaged in a period of, we call it a grace period. Mm-hmm. Half of the first term, they are in a grace period where they are not punished for anything. All they do is that they are responsible for their own bed and their desk. They do no other duties. During this period, we expect them to just look, learn, and get accustomed to this new environment.
You're in a unique position because you are a student at Starehe.
Yes.
And you're back now leading the institution. Mm-hmm. Do you find that that culture that was there when you were a student has remained?
Apparently that culture has remained because of the structure that is there. You know, Starehe is about a culture, it's about a philosophy, it's about traditions. And we have done our best to maintain these traditions so that somebody who comes into Starehe in 2017 will find the same atmosphere that I left in 1984. So we've maintained that, right. And we ensure that the boys' lives in school are as comfortable as possible.
Silas, there's been a lot of justification over this past week. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are saying this bullying has always been a rite of passage in many, many schools. Mm-hmm. And we went through it and we turned out fine. Mm-hmm. Is that really true?
That, I think, is wrong. A wrong justification. Shouldn't be that way. Because the reality is people adjust differently. If you go through a traumatic experience, for example, where you are bullied, there are people who react to that differently. For example, there is something we call inner resources. The inner ability to overcome a devastating kind of event or something that is happening in your life. Let me give an example so that we are able to understand.
Right.
If, for example, you are bullied in Form 1, at the same time your parents have divorced, I think that student will be in a more kind of traumatized, more traumatized than those others maybe who are, their parents are okay and they are going through bullying. So that student can actually go through more torture psychological torture,
Right.
other than, I mean, as compared to the others who are in a better place emotionally and probably even environmentally.
All right, we'll come back to that in a moment, but I want to bring in now Fatuma Nehondo in Mombasa for us. She is the principal at Nuru Memorial Secondary School. Do you have instances of bullying at your school? And if you do, how do you handle them?
Yes, no, about the bullying, we have not experienced much, but one time, like last year, there is a boy who wanted to bully Form 1, but now we had oriented the Form 1s. We did not tell them that the other students are bad, but whatever we told them, we alerted them to be aware of anything, and if they face any situation that was not favorable for their stay in the school, they had to report it.
Create this environment, Fatuma, where the students feel free to be able to speak to you. But you don't feel that sometimes they could be intimidated by the older students? If you go and speak to the head teacher, then you have to go back and relate to the same students. That might be harmful to them.
Now, again, please, pardon, please.
Don't you think that when the students come and tell you something, maybe somebody bullied them, that they might be intimidated by the older students when they go back?
Yeah. Yeah. No, whatever the case, it was just one, and the specific student, he did not really bully the student, but he created a friendly environment and he took some of her belongings. So when the girl wanted to take her belongings back, the older student refused. So that one, I took it as it was a bullying, an indirect bullying. So when I solved the problem by bringing the girl, and when she came and I asked the older student to give back whatever had taken from the Form 1.
So it was very well resolved.
So I went and talked to the, yeah.
Okay, so that was very well resolved, but you have an interesting situation. How do you create that environment where people can tell on each other in a way?
We have a unique setup of a session we call Baraza.
No, the environment whereby...
During Baraza, it's a session that is held every Friday evening where the director and some of the senior teachers meet with the boys. The Baraza is a very open and free discussion, a parliament of sort, where boys are free to air anything. The only rule there is that they must be polite, and they can bring in suggestions for the betterment of the school, but they can also bring in complaints. And anything that a boy says during Baraza cannot be held against the boy outside of it. So that gives them the freedom. If they had a challenge with a prefect, for example, they would come into Baraza and point it out, and the prefect would be required to defend himself.
In front of everybody, in front of the whole school?
Yes. And whatever challenges are brought out at Baraza, the solutions are found on the floor. So that atmosphere makes it impossible for anybody to do something outside of that session and think that they'll get away with it.
Silas, this is somebody, Sal Rawlings, who says, to date, 15 years down the line, the psychological scars inflicted on me by high school deputy are still fresh. Is this a common occurrence?
It is very common. Actually, in counseling room, we face quite a number of these cases. And people have gone through traumatic experiences. They are not able to resolve that. Or maybe at that moment, they didn't get anyone to give them counseling or to counsel them or give them therapy. Or they didn't have a platform where they could share what they were going through. And therefore, these keep on eating them inside them, slowly by slowly.
Even into adulthood?
Even to adulthood. And actually, it results sometimes to what we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorders. And we can realize that even in adults getting a depression just because they went through a traumatic experience when they were in secondary school.
What about the argument that this is a rite of passage and everybody goes through it and you should just man up or be woman enough and get over it?
I think that's a very wrong conception. Because what happens is, it is not about the culture. It's about the meaning you give to what has been done to you, the perception. Now, if you perceive this, what they call rite of passage, you perceive it negatively, it will actually impact you negatively at the same time. But however, there is no way that this will be, I mean, something will be done to you. For example, let's say an example where I've seen somebody, the private parts were really, you know, injured and all that. You can't tell me that's a rite of passage and you will take it positively. Right. It is not possible. I
want to get your lesson for a lot of head teachers are dealing with this around the country and perhaps they don't know how to handle it. What do you think they can learn from the Starehe model?
One, make the school as much as possible a home, so that you give the boys and girls a home environment where they know that they are dealing with their brothers and sisters. Then secondly, it's important to have a forum through which the students can air their grievances and their views without being victimized. And then thirdly, have a prefect team that one is focused on being role models and supporting the other students and not overbearing on them. And then just like we do it at Starehe, every Sunday evening I have a meeting with the captains and we are able to review the week that has passed and look into the following week, and we are able to pick out any issues that are coming up.
All right.
Yes.
Those are very good lessons. Finally, real quick, Fatuma, in one sentence or two sentences, what is your advice for head teachers, for schools around the country, on how to handle bullying in their schools?
Okay, the most important thing, we have to create a conducive environment for each and every student in the school, whereby, because if some of the students are facing some trouble or problem, they will carry the problem to the newcomers, the form ones.
Right.
So the environment of the school must be conducive